We have discussed many times that magical practice is not just working with consciousness, not just training or transforming it, but rather an art of developing active consciousness, its realization, self-knowledge, and self-actualization through studying the contacts of subject-object systems. In other words, the development of consciousness on the magical path occurs through conscious activity, purposeful and structured interactions of attention with objects in its field, and such contacts are not limited to contemplation. The object of attention is bothered, taken out of equilibrium to open up the maximum range of its energies and possibilities for interaction with them. In this process, consciousness studies both the diversity of the energies of the object it interacts with and the diversity of its reactions to them, thereby establishing correspondence between the internal and external reactions, the falling, reflected, and absorbed light. As we already know, the tradition describes such an activity of consciousness as creating whirlwinds, where a whirlwind is understood as an external manifestation of consciousness, an expression of its will and the ability to create reality. In other words, any energy-saturated action filled with the energy of desire and directed by a volitional impulse can be considered as a whirlwind born in a potential and homogeneous world environment, and expressing available aspects for cognition. From this point of view, any realization of desire, any radiation of the energy of desire is a whirlwind possessing quite measurable characteristics. Among such characteristics are the lifetime of the whirlwind, the direction of its movement, the energy potential, etc. The creation of any whirlwind is based on the corresponding logos, the representation of the consciousness that creates the whirlwind about what the ideal fulfillment of desire should be, its standard goal. At the same time, it is clear that in practice, the correspondence between the real whirlwind and its logos is quite relative, since consciousness is usually far from the degree of purity and unidirectionality required for an accurate expression of the inner nature of the expressed desire. Therefore, both all objects, external expressions of whirlwinds, and all whirlwinds themselves are actually an alchemical salt, a mixture, an ensemble of different energies, properties, and aspirations. At the level of whirlwinds, this composite nature manifests itself as a combination of various forms and directions of movement of the constituents of the common turbulence. Since straight forms of whirlwind's movement are traditionally perceived as positive and described as angelic, while reverse forms are described as demonic, the idea arises that in any action, in any manifestation of consciousness, there are light and dark components. Indeed, even at a simple level, it is obvious that any desire is colored by accompanying aspirations of varying degrees of coherence, as well as fears, distortions, and obscurations, etc. Therefore, on the path of self-discovery for developing consciousness, it is extremely important to be able to identify one's true motives and also to identify accompanying impulses and aspirations. Many quest rituals are dedicated to such analysis, including the search for knowledge and conversation, based on the Abramelin ritual. We have discussed this search from different perspectives before, which is aimed at identifying the highest individual logos, and now we will consider its technical component. In fact, the Abramelin ritual is a technology of dividing the total whirlwind of the desire for self-discovery into light, objectified as the holy guardian angel, and dark, identified as the four archdemons, components. Since the desire to know, like any other aspiration, is expressed in the form of a whirlwind, and this whirlwind, as we have said before, has a mixed nature, finding the highest guide, the inner guiding star, requires identifying the logos of this desire, which is achieved in the ritual. At the same time, the necessary tuning of the whirlwind of desire is achieved, its reorientation in accordance with the discovered, known, logos. The sacred space of the chapel created for the ritual, its contents, and the course of the operation are aimed at distilling and separating the swirls, the dark component of which is pushed out. Beyond the limits of this space, the terrace outside the chapel serves precisely for this purpose, and the light component gradually crystallizes inside. Accordingly, according to Abramelin, the ritual has two tasks: 1. Interviewing with the angel, that is, identifying the logos, and 2. Managing demons, that is, identifying and opposing detractors, and therefore combines Internal theurgy with internal goetic. And if significant attention of the operator is usually directed towards the light, angelic component of the ritual, the dark one is often ignored, which is the cause of many mistakes and problems. Indeed, despite its divine coloring and tuning, the Abramelin ritual is extremely dangerous precisely because it crystallizes both pure light and impenetrable darkness, manifesting both angels and demons. And therefore the forces and attention of the operator must be directed to control both components, each of which can be extremely traumatic on its own. Despite the often rather careless attitude, this quest technology is one of the most risky, but fortunately, also one of the most difficult to implement. Every mage who dares to start this ritual must be completely aware that the more success he achieves, the purer and brighter the energies inside the chapel become, the more darkness is pushed beyond its limits. Therefore, risking getting hit by the light strike inside, he should also be prepared to face the evil outside, and both of these dangers should not be underestimated.